So Ilia Topuria was asked about a potential rematch with Volk, and he was pretty dismissive of Volk's chances this time around.
So if I stay in the 145 division, I will do that. I don't want to do it again because I like Volk and I know what's going to happen if we face each other again.
You think it's the same thing?
Yeah, of course, it's the same thing. As I always say, I represent the new generation of mixed martial arts. I bring a different type of game that he's not used to. So I know what's going to happen. Maybe the next time, instead of knock him out, I will submit him. So maybe I'm going to change that to have different type of clips.
If there's one thing I've noticed about Ilia Topuria, it's that the man isn't arrogant. He may be cocky and boastful, but arrogant is not the right word because we don't have enough data to back up that claim. Because if I tell you I'm going to fly and you don't believe me, for good reasons, no human has ever flown before unless it was in a plane or helicopter or used some sort of device. But if I actually end up flying without any plane, without any helicopter, without any hover boots, that means that I am not arrogant. I may be boastful and cocky, just not arrogant, because arrogant is overestimating your capabilities. That isn't the case for Ilia Topuria, because he's beat every single one of his opponents in the fashion that he said he would. So when he says these things, it may make us want to prey on his downfall, but it shouldn't really be a surprise. I mean, look at the threat that Volk poses on paper. He's a great striker. He moves laterally. He has great footwork in general. His boxing is pretty decent. He uses some pretty good kickboxing. No head kicks, some body kicks here and there, but mostly low kicks that don't land with that much power. But he times them so well that he will outpoint you if you aren't very active. But when it comes to Ilia Topuria, those things just don't matter because the fight won't go to a decision. Perhaps it would favor Volk if it went to a decision because he outlanded Ilia Topuria in the first round. But who knows how the fight would have played out had it went into the fifth round. It's not like he has a bad gas tank, and his UFC debut might say otherwise because he gassed out by the third round. But there were a lot of external factors that contributed to that. Apparently the fight was on short notice and Ilia was ill, so I'll cut him some slack. But we have seen him fight 5 rounds before, and that was against Josh Emmett, and he won every single round. He outboxed Josh Emmett. His defense was perfect. He had some head movement. He had the shoulder roll. He was using the Philly shell like Prime Floyd himself. He knew where to be at any given point. Josh Emmett's power did not make any difference whatsoever because Ilia Topuria knew he wasn't going to get hit. So I think we would see a performance similar to that had he pushed Volk to the fifth round. The pressure would be too overwhelming for Volk, so even if he did survive up until the fifth round, all it would take to steal a round is an occasional overhand or left hook that would send Volk flying across the cage. It's that easy. Volk could be winning on points, landing a leg kick and a jab here and there. But if Ilia lands a very powerful strike that knocks down Volk, he steals that round. So there aren't a lot of paths to victory for Volk unless he uses a double eye poke hook combination that knocks out Ilia. And if he would do that without the ref seeing it, I think he could steal the fight. But other than that, I don't think he stands a chance because on paper, Ilia Topuria is just the better fighter. He's the better grappler as he does come from a Greco-Roman wrestling background. And on striking, yeah, you could argue that Volk has volume, but Ilia Topuria could knock out Volk at any moment in the fight. So Volk would have to be perfect for 5 rounds. We already saw him try to do that in the first fight, and he didn't even survive 2 rounds. So yeah, I think Ilia Topuria is probably going to win the rematch. And it's not like I think Ilia Topuria is invincible. There isn't a fighter on the planet that's invincible. All you would have to do is build the perfect arsenal that counters his style. Now, the perfect arsenal doesn't have to be a complete MMA fighter like Islam Makhachev or John Jones. It just has to be a fighter that has this one attribute that Ilia Topuria can't fight back against. So looking at his early fights, for instance, against Steven Gonsalves is a journeyman with a 7-5 record, yet he did way better than Volk did. Because in the first round, he landed a head kick that dropped Ilia Topuria and almost ended the fight. But Ilia Topuria has a high fight IQ, so he quickly reset it and took him down from then onwards so he could recover. But that wasn't the first time someone landed a head kick on Ilia Topuria. Watch Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert had a very competitive fight with Ilia Topuria up until he got knocked out. And there was a point when he landed a head kick that Ilia Topuria didn't see coming. And it was almost the same result as his fight against Steven Gonsalves, where he gets dropped and then the fighter comes to finish him. And then he quickly adjusts because of his high fight IQ and takes them down and wrestles so he can recover. So it's pretty clear that Ilia Topuria is susceptible to getting head kicked. So Volk just isn't the guy to do that because he's just as short as Ilia, if not shorter. So you'd have to be a long fighter. Ilia Topuria has faced some long guys like Max Holloway, but Max Holloway is primarily known for his boxing and not his high kicks. And that's why I said in a previous video that Yair Rodriguez may actually be a good matchup for Ilia Topuria because he has the most dynamic kicks and he can throw them at any point. There was an interview where Max Holloway said you could be nose to nose with Yair Rodriguez and he would still be able to kick your head. So that could do pretty well against Ilia. But the only problem is Ilia has a pretty high guard, so he would block pretty much every single one of those kicks unless it's a front kick like a teep. But if it's like a roundhouse or a lead kick, I don't think he'll be able to land that on Ilia. And on top of that, Ilia is a pressure fighter, so he wouldn't leave that many openings for Yair to throw those kicks. So I still think Yair wouldn't be able to beat him. But there is a way you could beat Ilia Topuria that doesn't involve striking. I think it's best not to strike someone like him because he's one of the best strikers the UFC's ever seen. And I don't think there's anyone in the top 15 that can strike with him. But grappling wise, I think Movsar Evloev does pose a threat. And I think he might be the only guy that can beat Ilia Topuria. And I'm interested in seeing how that matchup plays out.